Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this week we have Spidersaurs, a cartoony run and gun. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From developer WayForward, Spidersaurs originally released to Apple Arcade in 2019. Now fast forward to July of 2022, and it's available for the PlayStation 4 and 5, the Xbox family of consoles, the PC, and the Nintendo Switch, which is the version we're looking at today. So, as far as run and guns are concerned, Spidersaurs is closest to the Contra style of run and gun. That's not surprising, as WayForward was the developer of Contra 4, so if those are the kind of games you like, then this I think is one you definitely should check out. That said, although I do think it's a really fun title, there were definitely points that it was frustrating as well. So let's dive into the game and you can kind of judge from what you see yourself. Here at the title screen, when you select, you're given the choice of playing one or two players. If you do select one player and you have a second controller attached, the second player can drop in at any time, so you don't necessarily need to worry about that here. Unfortunately, part of the frustration was playing the game in co-op. I just didn't feel as optimized for that play style as I would have liked. Selecting your player count, you're taken to your mode select. Initially, you'll just have the story mode until that's cleared, and once you clear that, you unlock arcade and speedrun mode. So as far as showing off the game today, I'll be using speedrun mode, as this will allow me to show all the abilities in the game without having to unlock them first. Then we're taken to our difficulty selection, and here we start to see some of the fun humor that this title has. It has a very cartoony, the description on of the site itself kind of gives it Saturday morning cartoon kind of like a description, and I do feel that comes across really well in the game's presentation. So here we have the difficulty. You've got well done, which is your easy, medium, and rare. So rare is of course the hard one. We'll just be showing off the game in well done. Then we're taken to our character select. There are only two characters available here, Victoria and Adrian. Ability wise, they're the same save for their weapons, and that's where things really shake things up. So I'll be showing off Victoria today, but keep in mind Adrian does have different weapons, and that's a lot of the fun in a running gun. Then once that's taken care of, you also select pods, and I'll get to these in a little bit. It's not that big of a choice really, so we'll go ahead and pick fireworks pods. So initially, if you're playing the game in story mode, there's quite a bit of story cutscenes between each stages, but in arcade mode and speedrun mode, the story is skipped and we're dropped right into the action. So if you've ever played other WayForward titles, you'll note that their animation is one of the things that the games really excel at. And also the backgrounds look really great in this game as well. So this stage acts as our tutorial. So it's very Contra-like, where we have the ability, of course, to run around and we can fire our weapon. In this case, we can also fire our weapon in all the various directions around us. And there's even a button that allows us to hold in place, as it's saying here, and fire our weapon in any of the 8 directions around us that we can shoot. Very useful for boss fights, like taking on enemies, anything really like that. So those are your basic abilities you have initially in the game, but then throughout the course of your game playthrough, you'll unlock the ability to climb on walls and ceilings, which, let's see if I can use this wall here. Yes, this you don't actually have the first time you're in this stage, but once you've unlocked that ability, you can do that wall climb. Then in the subsequent stages, you'll get the ability to do a double jump. In any game where movement is crucial, that's always important. There's also a dash that you unlock towards the end of your playthrough. There's a slam, which has a little bit of an effect if you're on the ground, but if you're the higher up you are, the more that slam will do. And also a couple other mobility options like a grapple that can take you upwards to platforms or rails. So like Contra titles, if you're on the ceiling or the wall, you can fire, but you won't be able to move. You have to cease fire to be able to make that move itself. And that's our basic movement. So also, as in Contra, I kind of feel the spread gun is definitely one of the best weapons you could possibly have. So here's our first boss, the Queen Spidersaurs, or just Spidersaur. So, like, now's a good time to talk about a little bit about the silly story that this game has. Basically, it's in a near future where food is extremely scarce, and so this company that we've been employed by, Ingest, is developing, or has been developing, these like spiders and, let's see, paired with dinosaurs, kind of like to be the ultimate nutrition. And well, when you mix like spiders and dinosaurs together, things are obviously not going to go super well. And we can kind of see that manifest by all the enemies escaping like their captivity and going muck. So, after a little bit of fight, we take out the boss. Well, in this case, the boss gets away, but you kind of get the idea. Stage clear, you're given a stage completion time. Then, in a normal playthrough, you would unlock a new ability here. In this case, the ability to climb walls. And we'd move on to more cutscenes, and even a stage select, so you can play the stages over again, should you desire, in story mode. But here we find ourselves in Mission 1, the actual first mission of the game itself. And one neat feature that has, if you were reading the various descriptions of the tutorials, you might have noticed, but if you pick up the same power-up twice, you'll actually enhance the weapon that you have equipped. So even with your base shot, if you get 2 of your normal shot, you'll have more powerful rapid shot. Same with a spread gun, but this weapon right here, this is kind of our laser. So for Victoria, it's like this awesome shock shot here, which is piercing, passes through walls and everything. So it's actually extremely useful. For Adrian, it's a flamethrower. So as far as their 2 weapons are concerned, Victoria attacks with this awesome electric guitar axe of, let's see, hers, and Adrian uses what is a called a sports castle. So he's basically throwing various sports type balls at the enemies, so baseball, footballs, or in the case of that one, a flamethrower. You might have noticed there was a red pod that I shot that basically unleashed fireworks display. That was the fireworks pod I selected at the beginning of the our gameplay. And overall, it's not very impressive. Oh, so this is a barrier. It gives us immunity to enemy shots, but not physical contact with the enemies themselves. So one thing that, as far as the platforming is concerned in this title, you see a lot of these vertical spaces throughout the course of the gameplay. Sometimes enemies will drop healing items, which will replenish our lives. You can see there next to the character portrait, there are the pluses. If we take damage, those will go down. Here we can swap weapons and... Well, I missed picking up that, let's see, weapon. So that one's kind of like an explosive shell that acts as, what's the right way to describe it? It's a chain lightning. So if you have multiple enemies close together, the lightning will chain together. Unfortunately, it ends up being relatively weak compared to how it looks. You would think that a bomb attack like that would be relatively powerful. Unfortunately, at least as far as Victoria is concerned, it's not. So here we're coming across our first mini-boss. This mini-boss you actually encounter multiple times throughout the game. It doesn't have a name now, and I won't spoil it too much, but, oh. with a little bit of effort and like using the spread to its full advantage at close range, bam, we're done with like that mini boss, and we can move on with the rest of the stage. So that's basically what we have here as far as Spidersaurs. So we're getting to one of the points where I would say the game definitely starts to get frustrating. And this comes most definitely from having tried playing this section first off with 2 players. So when you're playing 2 players, it's not like the game really waits for for both players or even scrolls the screen out. In this section, if one player were to move faster than the other, that one player is scrolled off the screen and ultimately will like lose health and potentially like lives until they're like they get a game over, and it's something that was personally quite frustrating. There's also like some falling obstacles here that don't have much warning, and those will also deal damage. With full movement options, it's not as bad as when you're initially playing through the title itself, but that's something to keep in mind, in that like when you're playing 2-player, the vertical spaces are the frustration, because inevitably you're going to lose one player or another. And then depending on where you're at, there was even a point where I was just like respawning right over a pit multiple times and quickly lost a life because of that. So there's just some design issues there. That's I would say really my biggest like minus flavors, just like some of the balance and platforming, especially with co-op, is just, it doesn't feel optimized, and that feels like weird for a title that originally released on a platform like on a platform like Apple Arcade. Other like parts that I go and find a little bit as a minus flavor is some of the boss fights can actually be pretty frustrating as well. Specifically, stage 3's boss, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, was an extremely like frustrating stage to play through. And like that boss, one of the things that was frustrating about it is there's no easy or clear indicator as to when you might be taking out a boss. There's not decent like visual cues as to how much damage they've taken. So this boss like here is a good example. Although the combiner itself, this boss is has some fun mechanic in that it's grabbing these like test tubes from either side of the stage and combining together these bizarre spider sword dinosaur like spider creations that like are random, so you're not going to get the same kind of combinations throughout like your playthroughs. You'll see different combinations each time, and well, that's something that I think is like pretty neat for this kind of a boss. But as I was like saying, I would like to have an easier indication as to how far through a boss fight I was. Just a health bar, or even like the boss like blinking a little bit more, would have been like a really great like feature to have. And like touched on it as well with the like 2-player, but some of the platforming is just a little bit frustrating and unfair, where it feels like the game is just trying to lose you by like throwing a tricky platforming section at you. So as with like is often the case with this kind of run and gun, if you lose a life while you're holding a weapon, you'll lose that weapon. But in the case of being able to equip 2 weapons, your second weapon is still viable to use if you switch to it. So if you have a weapon that you really enjoy using, you want to swap out of that if you happen to be on low life. So as far as the plus flavors are concerned, As I mentioned, like Way Forward definitely is great when it comes to their art and their character animations, and this game here definitely shows that off in spades. So if you're a fan of titles like, say, Shantae, or the Mighty Switch Force like titles that they've developed, then I think this one is one that you'll enjoy for that particular element, at the very least. And then after getting past like those initial frustrations that I was talking about, the run and gun action here is like pretty decent. So oftentimes run and guns actually can be frustrating. So like that might not be as much of a deal breaker to some as others. But one thing to note about the title is it is a little on the short side with 6 stages, including the tutorial mission. So that said, at the end of the day, I would ultimately tentatively recommend Spidersaurs to those who are fans of run and guns of the Contra variety, especially with some neat animation. But given the shorter length, it might not be one that I would recommend picking up at full price. Maybe wait for a sale. Alright, that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for joining us this week. I hope you have a wonderful week yourself, and we'll see you next time.